Oh, hey, how you doing? It's Tuesday, November 26th. It's the day before the busiest travel day of the year. We're going to go over that for you. It's 10:47 in the morning. Let me explain. I wanted to wait for the GFS, the new model, to finish its run. In fact, it's not even finished yet, but it's far enough along that we'll get into it here. So we'll start with the hazards like we normally do. And we'll start up in the Northeast. We have some winter weather advisories. So be advised, there's going to be some winter weather up there in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, northern New York. And we even see winter storm watches in effect for the Great Lakes. So we'll get into that too. The Great Lakes are going to get hammered this weekend. Also, off of Lake Superior, we see winter weather advisories up there. Meanwhile, storm moving into the middle of the Rockies, so the Colorado Rockies, especially winter storm warnings up here, dipping into New Mexico a little bit, getting up into Wyoming as well. And so winter storm warnings, winter storm watches, winter weather advisories. Also, Utah, you're into that. Again, parts of Idaho. Certainly California, lingering heavy snows in the Sierra Nevada today with winter storm warnings there and some winter weather advisories as well. Some fog up there, Salem to Portland in the Willamette Valley. And did I leave anything out? Yeah, freeze watches, Northern California coast. It's getting cold. A little bit of wind issues too for California, New Mexico, and Colorado. All right, let's get into the GFS that's still running. This is not even finished yet, but once we get past the week, it's all kind of iffy anyway. So we'll start with this morning. This is earlier this morning. So the 18Z minus 5. Oh, 13. That's 1 o'clock this afternoon. So a couple hours from now, 3 hours from now, we have snow moving into the Rockies, into Utah, Nevada, getting snow. Still heavy in the Sierra Nevada. Rain, lower elevations. Moving towards Southern California even, light snow in Idaho, Montana. Here's your wintry mix up here in the Northeast. And as we move through the day, the rest of the day, we see the snow moving out of the Northeast. And we start to see this low that's near James Bay rotating around. We're going to have westerly, northwesterly, and westerly winds off the lakes. It's really going to turn on those snow jets. Meanwhile, here's your snow back in the Rockies and Intermountain West. This will get us to midnight tonight. Snowing in Colorado, snowing in Utah. Snow moving south into New Mexico, parts of northern Arizona, and even into the western panhandle of Oklahoma and a little bit of the panhandle of Texas as we get into the day tomorrow. So this is the busiest travel day of the year, so I'm going to back up again. So here's your Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. Here's your biggest weather issues would be Colorado with the heavy snow, parts of Utah. And as we go through the day, it's the worst of it stays in Colorado, and then a little bit of light snow, northwestern Montana and the Idaho panhandle. Then as we get into Wednesday evening, we see a little bit of snow mixing in with the rain. Indiana, Illinois seeing rain, and then we've got the snow that's moving into, say, Clayton, New Mexico, maybe Dalhart, Texas, a little bit of light snow, but this is falling apart. And as we get to midnight, I don't know if people will still be on the road midnight. They might be. So watch out parts of Indiana into Ohio and up into Pennsylvania, New York, and also parts of Montana, some light snow. But then as we get into Thanksgiving itself, this is our focus now, the big storm, trailing cold front, some showers in the southeast, into the Tennessee Valley, Kentucky, up into West Virginia. And that's snow for much of Ohio into Pennsylvania and New York. And this storm throughout the day, Thanksgiving, bringing some good snows for Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. It's rain near the coast, but possibly changing to snow for Massachusetts, maybe a little bit of Connecticut as well. And then we see heavier rain busting out Thanksgiving night or evening in the Carolinas back into Georgia. And then the snow machines starting in Lake Superior Friday. And then as we get our Thursday night, and then as we get into Friday, Black Friday, People heading to the stores, perhaps standing in lines, getting in fights. I don't know. That tug of war on the last item, is that still a thing? A lot of people do it online, but I guess there is some deals out there. So anyway, we get into Friday. Friday morning, snow jets coming off of Michigan now, coming off of Ontario and Erie, and even Huron into Canada, into Canada. And those snow jets are going to be the big story as we go through the rest of the weekend. A little bit of light snow up here in the northern plains, but again, the snow jets are the big story. Where I live here in western Iowa, hoping for a little bit of snow from this little disturbance, moving mainly into Nebraska, South Dakota, Missouri, a little bit into Iowa. Maybe we'll get a dusting or maybe even an inch if I'm lucky. And that moves into northern Missouri. It's just massive amounts of snows coming off the lakes for lake effect snow. This gets us to Saturday noon, light snow into Montana. And then as we go through the rest of Sunday, really the biggest name in town is the cold air blowing across the lakes and the lake effect snow. Now, the other story is the cold. I mean, it's going to get cold, below freezing, pretty far south, and we'll go over that when we get into Sunday's highs, because those highs aren't going to crack freezing pretty far south. And say where I am in western Iowa, by Wednesday evening, we're going to dip below freezing. We're not going to get it back above freezing until maybe Tuesday of next week. So cold air is coming. And for some, it's here today. This is your 24-hour temperature change, much colder. In the purple there, 20, 30 degrees below what it was this time yesterday, but warmer. Moving into the plains a little bit warmer here in western Iowa and back into the Intermountain West. But again, that snow's coming. So even a little bit warmer doesn't necessarily mean not snow. All right, anomalous temperatures for today. So this is above and below average. So even though it's a little bit warmer in Utah, it's still below average today. Much below average northern plains, slightly below or slightly above most of the rest of the country. Anomalous temperatures tomorrow. We see more cold air coming out of Colorado into the Texas Panhandle. More cold air up there in the northern plains. Everyone else just cool, except for the southeast, warmish, and then much above average for a lot of Texas. And then when we get into Thanksgiving, most of the country below average and much below average up there in the northern plains, and a pretty good pocket of cold air eastern New Mexico and West Texas too. All right, surface for today. So here's where we see our wintry mix up there in the northeast. Rain with that cold front along the coast. Snow off of Lake Superior. Some light snow northern plains. Heavy snow, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, and a little bit of Oregon there. Surface for tomorrow. Our cold front moves offshore on the East Coast, but some lingering rains behind. Showery for the southeast, getting more rainy Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, and then switching over to rain mixed with snow. When you get further north, and again, this is what we showed you for the busiest travel day of the year, maybe late in the day, a little bit of snow, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Heavy snow, Colorado, that's the worst of the travel. And then maybe some light snow up there in the Dakotas into Minnesota, also Montana, Wyoming, Utah. All right, surface on Thanksgiving, cold air invading most of the country. This is where the fronts are in the morning, so the cold air will continue to move southeast and east as well. So much of the country will be below average on Thanksgiving. Here are the highs today. So below freezing for highs, northern plains, upper Midwest, 40s here in Iowa into Missouri, 50s, Oklahoma, into Arkansas, 50s Tennessee, some 40s thrown in for Kentucky, and then up in the Great Lakes, 40s and 30s northeast, but much warmer on the other side of the front as you get into the Carolinas, into the southeast, into Texas. And I tell you what, Tucson's the place to be, 71 degrees today. Tomorrow, Tucson, 70 degrees. 70s and 80s hanging on there in Texas and the southeast, quite pleasant. But cooling off a little bit more now back in Iowa. Here comes the cold air coming back for tomorrow's highs. But we see a lot of 40s across the Midwest. 30s and 20s, of course, for the Great Lakes, 40s for the Pacific Northwest coastal areas, 50s Central California. That stays the same on Thanksgiving. And cooling off in West Texas, mid 50s maybe for Lubbock, maybe a little cooler than this. But those highs below freezing invade my part of the country. So our high on Thanksgiving is expected to be 31 degrees here in western Iowa, and colder as you head north. Lots of 30s in the northeast too. Black Friday, cold air moving further into the Midwest and into the Great Lakes, and also cooler air all the way down to the Gulf Coast. We see 50s in Louisiana, for example, low to mid 40s in Tennessee. Saturday, even cooler, although warmth bubbling back into Texas, but the southeast cooling off, and certainly Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast. We see a lot of highs here below freezing, and that is the most dramatic on Sunday. And we can just see that freezing line comes out of the Rockies down to Hastings, Nebraska, across I-70 from Kansas City to St. Louis, over to Cincinnati, up to Pittsburgh, much of West Virginia below freezing, and then over to, say, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, much of New York below freezing, the mountainous areas of Massachusetts, or hilly areas, Vermont, New Hampshire, northern Maine. So that's pretty far south for the highs on Sunday, not getting above freezing. And that's going to mean a lot of Great Lakes snow. So here's your next 2 hours of precipitation. Some decent rains for the southeast into Tennessee, Kentucky, up into the Midwest, eastern Great Lakes, and the Northeast. But even more precipitation for Colorado, Utah, and the mountains of California, where it will fall as snow. And we're looking at 2 feet of snow easy. Mountains of Colorado, mountains of Utah, mountains of California. More of a dusting there, North Dakota. Well, dusting, 4 inches maybe, 4 or 5 inches for some. Similar for Idaho, and there's your little smiley face, where it's warmer in the Snake River Valley, the Treasure Valley, in the Gem State. And then we see higher amounts there off of Lake Superior and also off of the eastern Great Lakes. And we'll take a closer look at that here in a second. First, here's your snow depth at noon on Thanksgiving. Kind of where we just showed you where the snow's falling. That's where it will be on the ground Thanksgiving at noon. And here's the Great Lakes story. This is midnight Sunday. So this is your snow depth midnight Sunday. And so we see a good close to 2 feet up there in the UP of Michigan, close to 1.5 feet there in northern Michigan, eastern Great Lakes. Oh my goodness, coming off of Lake Ontario into especially New York State, we see a good 1.5 feet approaching 2 feet. Coming off of Lake Erie, 2, maybe 3 feet of snow on the ground. So the Great Lakes, the snow machine is going to turn on this weekend, and it's going to keep going. So that's going to be a big story for the long Thanksgiving weekend. 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, December 3 through 9. Below average east, above average west. Precipitation dry through the center of the country, especially California, Nevada. Above average chances of above average precipitation, northern plains and southern Texas. There you see Alaska and Hawaii as well. So there's your quick look of your forecast for Thanksgiving through the weekend. And if you're wanting snow and you're in the Great Lakes, I'm thinking there's going to be some storm chasers there chasing those snow jets. So there'll be lots of entertaining YouTube TV for that for sure. Otherwise, have a great Thanksgiving. We will update you again tomorrow, of course. And I'll try and do it a little bit earlier, although I do like this later run, but it's kind of later in the day. I'd like to get started a little earlier. Anyway, we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. The Weather Mike.